soda over. I turned to my husband and go, did you hear that? Did you hear that? He said my name. I'm Judy Pancoast. I am from Maine, land of Stephen King, but I live in Connecticut currently. I'm a musician. I do all kinds of music, but I'm mainly known for children's music, believe it or not. From the time I was a baby, my mother, she wasn't a musician per se, but she loved to sing. She always had the radio on. We had a piano in our house that she pretended to play. I always sang. My mother says I could sing before I could actually talk in sentences. But I started taking piano lessons at age 10, and at age 11, I wrote my first little song, and I thought immediately that I was going to be famous. I studied music, and from that point on, I started playing in piano bars and writing songs. I did piano lounge music. I was with a rock band for a while. I was with a jazz band for a while. I went through a country phase where I moved to Nashville. Then we came back to New England and I had a baby, and I decided I was going to drop music, drop everything and change my life and go back to school and become a teacher so my kids could have a normal life. And I was studying elementary ed, and they sent me to a classroom. So I ended up making up little songs with the kids. And the next thing I know, the principal peeks in. He says, I hear you write children's music. You want to do an assembly? I said, sure. Then the local library called and said, we hear you do children's music. You want to come perform here? And I've been doing it ever since. That was 1996. I'm very happy. And I have traveled to every state in the United States except Alaska, and to other countries to sing. It's taken me to a lot of places, and I've met a lot of people because of it. I've had a pretty good life as a musician. I was in England actually performing. I looked down and I saw I had all kinds of text messages and missed calls. I'm like, what's this? So I tried calling my house and nobody answered. Then I called my daughter, she was in college. And when she answered the phone, she started screaming, and I heard all her roommates screaming, you got nominated for a Grammy! And then I started screaming, and we were screaming across the Atlantic Ocean, I swear, for 20 minutes. The best thing about it was that I was nominated at the age of 51. If I had been nominated when I was young, I wouldn't have appreciated it so much. But on my 50th birthday, I was really depressed. I thought I'd be successful, and I don't even know if I've been doing the right thing all my life. And then the following winter, I got nominated for a Grammy. So it was amazing. It was just amazing. I felt validated. Right now, I have a musical for young teens called Girl on the Moon, and it's about a young teen who wants to be an astronaut. So she invites all her friends over to watch the moon landing in 1969. And so it's a period piece. And during the course of the evening, she learns that there are no female astronauts in the United States. And her friend who wants to be a radio DJ is also thwarted because she's a girl. It's an awakening for them. They realize that they live in a man's world. And if they're going to succeed and break these barriers, they have to stick together and be strong. And that's the point of the show. Yes, my goal is to make my music life-affirming. With the children's music, it's to bring joy. I'm not really much of a message person. I just want kids to be kids. I want them to have fun, so that's why I have songs like Swimming in Jell-O. And same with the Christmas music. I just want people to be happy. I know it can be hard sometimes, and so I want to uplift people. I had a sister who was 12 years older than me. And one day in the summer of 1970, when I was 11, she comes home and she says, Judy, I heard this song on the radio. You're going to love it. You'll be able to sing along with this girl. She sounds like you. But then she was taking me to the beach like a week later, and all of a sudden she cranked the radio and she said, this is that song. Listen to it. And it was Close to You. And my life just really did change forever that day. I became obsessed. I mean, it was all I listened to. I saw them in concert 4 times. I managed to get backstage to meet them one time. And I just absolutely loved the sound of her voice. I loved Richard's arrangements. I loved everything about them. I love the Carpenters. I still love the Carpenters. It isn't Christmas until I play their Christmas album, or both their Christmas albums. And I mean, I think anybody who's a Carpenters fan can tell you it's hard to put into words the effect that her voice has on you. She sounded like she was singing to each person. She just had that gift, and it was totally natural, untrained, totally natural. Boy, did I get made fun of in school. And this is one of the reasons why I think the term mutant applies to me, because I would wear my Carpenters t-shirt to school and everybody would make fun of me. And I proudly wore that thing. And, kids would walk by me and be like, AC/DC is better, or the Carpenters stink. So I was kind of a misfit in my community, so to speak, because I loved the Carpenters. But once people heard me sing, they didn't make fun of me anymore. Like a lot of weirdos, I was in the theater club at my school and I was in the music department and all that stuff. That's where we found our people, right? So that changed everything for me. Music saved my life, really. It really did. My whole entire life, because my parents, my brother, my sister, everybody loved horror. I guess I was 3. My sister was 15 and she got her first job. She worked at the concession stand at the local B movie theater. So at 3 years old, she would bring me with her and I would sit up in the closed balcony. So it was just me and the projectionist. And she'd bring me literally cardboard boxes full of popcorn and soda and candy. But I just watched every movie that played. And the earliest one I watched, I remember the scene. The very first real horror scene in a movie that I remember was a woman with knitting needles stuck in her neck. And I looked that up later on and it was called The Old Dark House. But then at home, we all watched the creature features and my brother had the Aurora monster model kits. And when he was at home, I'd go in his room and play with them, even though I wasn't supposed to. And it was just the whole thing. We loved the Alfred little paperbacks that were supposedly edited by Alfred Hitchcock, even though they weren't really, that had all the horror short stories. And I read those over and over again. That's how I was exposed to writers like Ray Bradbury and Robert Bloch. Watched The Twilight Zone, watched the Alfred Hitchcock show. My mother took me to movies with her to see Rosemary's Baby when I was 9. I saw Psycho and The Birds and all those movies on TV. It just was part of our lives. And I got dragged along into it and I'm not sorry. I mean, I love horror to this day. It's my comfort thing. I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people don't understand that. How can you watch that stuff? I'm like, would I rather be in a dark theater watching a horror movie or know what's going to happen in 2025 in this country? I would rather be watching the horror movie. Let me tell you what. See, I prefer supernatural horror. But then again, my all-time favorite horror movie is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I guess that happened in some. I saw that at the drive-in the year it came out. Immediately fell in love with it because Sally jumped out the window. And in every other movie that I had seen where a girl was being chased by a monster or whatever, they'd always kind of fall down and go, no, no. Or my favorite line, you don't have to do this. That's such a stupid thing for a victim to say. You think the monster or the killer or the slasher doesn't know they don't have to do it? They want to do it, okay? She just went down those stairs and out the window. She didn't even stop, and she did it twice, and she fell and she hurt her ankle and she still kept on running. That's a final girl. But don't get me started on Jaws. The Daily Jaws is a website, social media presence, and they are the clearinghouse for all things Jaws. On my birthday, in the summer of 23, they said happy birthday to me and said, have you seen our 45th anniversary of Jaws 2 interview with Jeffrey Kramer? Deputy Hendricks is just my favorite character in Jaws. He's so goofy and he's like the real underdog and he's looking out for his people. And they said, you really ought to watch it. I cast it to the TV and my husband comes in. He's like, what are you watching? I said, it's an interview with Jeffrey Kramer. So he sat down. I had a Diet Pepsi on the table. My cat was on my lap. And all of a sudden they ask him, they say, do you think Jaws is a horror movie? And he says, well, Judy Pancoast on Twitter. And I went, ah! Oh my God, what? And the cat jumped off my lap, knocked the soda over. I turned to my husband and did you hear that? Did you hear that? He said my name. We went insane. I went insane. I mean, after this having been my favorite movie since the summer it came out, I never could have dreamed that I would hear an actor from the movie say my actual name unprovoked. Because he happens to agree with me that Jaws is not a horror movie, but that's another story. I wrote him an email and I told him, I said, how exciting that was for me. He wrote back, he said, this is one of the nicest emails I've ever gotten. I can't wait to share it with my sons. I sat down at the piano and I wrote that Jaws love song for Deputy Hendrix. And I piled it full of as many Jaws references as I could. And I just recorded myself sitting at the piano and playing it. So then I said, well, okay, the next step here is to actually go do a full-blown production of it in the studio. So I did that earlier this year. While I was in there recording it, I said, wouldn't it be great if we could get him to record some lines? So I sent him an email, told him what I was doing, and told him, I said, look, I'll pay your rate. I may have to pay it in installments. And he wrote back right away and he said, you don't have to pay me a cent. I will do this for you for free. He sent me, it wasn't just the lines I asked for. It was 20 minutes of Deputy Hendrix ad-libbing. Oh my God. I said, I really want to meet you in person somewhere and play the song for you in person. So he invited me to his house. So I went to his house and we sat there at his dining room table and talked for 2 hours. He is the friendliest, most personable, most down to earth. And then I played him the song and he loved it. And then I showed him the video and he loved it. He goes, I'm going to send this to blah, 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 blah. He told me all these people he was going to send it to. Talk about crazy turns in your life. You know, I mean, I could never have dreamed even 2 years ago that any of this would ever happen. If somebody had said 2 years from now, and you know, I'm 65. You don't expect exciting things to happen to you when you're my age. I had so many exciting things happen as a result of that. And it's all because we followed each other on Twitter. To be honest with you, I was shocked when I heard that people were calling it a horror movie. Even Joe Bob says it's a horror movie. It's got a monster and it kills people and there's lots of blood, blah, 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 blah. Things about, oh, people wouldn't go in the water. People wouldn't go in the water. That's baloney. I don't know anybody who didn't go in the water because of Jaws. I mean, there are people who say that, but I'm from Maine and I was constantly at the ocean beaches and I never saw people just sitting on the sand after Jaws came out. I mean, and everybody saw that movie. Let's face it. You were hard pressed to find anybody in the summer of '75 who didn't see Jaws. And the ocean was just as filled with swimmers as it always had been. It's a suspenseful movie, but I've always thought of it as an adventure. And you get to know the characters a lot more than you get to know the characters in most horror movies. You really do. You see a lot about their personalities. I mean, in most horror movies, it's horror, 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 right down the line, right? But in Jaws, 3/4 of the movie, there isn't really any horror at all. And that's because, as we all know now, the shark wasn't working. But that's what made it into such a great adventure / character study. I mean, I know it had jump scares. Yes, we all jumped the first time we saw it and everything. But still, I just don't consider it a horror movie. And even, this was one thing I mentioned in one of my arguments, even say you put on the score, there's only a couple songs that are scary. The rest of it is all this happy music, right? You're not, a horror movie score isn't like that. That's not the horror movie music. And you know what? Steven Spielberg has been quoted as saying, I have never directed a horror movie. So there you go. Sorry, Joe Bob. I guess you could say Apocalypse Now is a horror movie, or any war movie is a horror movie, right? There's blood, there's killing, there's stuff that's brutal and real. You could call anything that scares you is your horror movie. For me, the summer that Jaws came out was the summer I turned 16, as I say in the song. And I kept going back. I saw it 16 times for my, I just wanted to see people jump, but I wasn't thinking of it as a horror movie in line with all the other horror movie I'd seen. It was no Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'll tell you that. I kept finding people who hadn't seen it yet and going back with them. And when I couldn't find anybody, I'd go by myself because I just wanted to be in that world. I love horror and I love Jaws. It's my all-time favorite movie, but it is not a horror movie. And I'll die on that hill. When Stephen King wrote Dance Macabre, he put it very well when he said that we in our daily lives tend to experience angst and fear, anxiety about what's happening in the world. We see footage of wars, kids getting shot in schools, and you can't even go to the movies anymore without having to worry if you got the right shoes on to run. watching a movie that you know is fake helps you get that fear out in a healthy way. You can go, oh my God, oh my God. I mean, I remember in The Ring, when Samara starts crawling out of the TV at the end, I went, no effing way. Just wasn't expecting that at all. And yet then you laugh. Then you laugh, right? You have that moment of fear and then you laugh. And you can't laugh at what's going on in the real world, but you can at a horror movie after you're scared. It's like the jump scare with the cat, and then you laugh at yourself for having jumped. Even when it's not a horror movie, it's a book. I don't love reading anything more than I love reading a horror novel, and of course, Stephen King is the king. He's written some of the scariest books. And there's a big difference between gross and scary. You can tell me about all the popping eyeballs you want, but unless I am actually watching the guy with knife or needle or whatever about to go up to the eyeball and it gives me some suspense, then it's not scary, it's just gross. What was scary in The Birds was the grandma walking through the house, not knowing where the farmer was. And you know there's all kinds of bird feathers around and there are dead birds around, so you know what she finds is gonna be bad. You see the guy on the floor and the camera goes boop, 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 right into his poked out eyeballs. That's scary. I mean, yes, it's gross, but it's been built up. The suspense of it has been built up. I'm going off on a tangent now. All the reasons horror is comfort. It's a safe place to express your fears and your anxieties. Oh, I love The Haunting, the original 1963 version. I watched that when I was a little girl on TV, and I just thought that voice from behind that wall when they were in there cowering, and it was just, you know, you were seeing the wall and you were hearing, that's terrifying. I watch that every Halloween season without fail. My favorite vampire movie is Fright Night, bar none. The original, don't even talk about the remake. Chris Sarandon, best vampire ever, and that's saying a lot because I grew up with Christopher Lee and I love him. But Chris Sarandon, please. I mean, he was both sexy and frightening. That whole movie is perfection, and that guy who played Evil Ed should have gotten an Academy Award. Also, The Howling. I love The Howling. Best werewolf movie, and I've seen some really good werewolf movies, but I think The Howling is the best werewolf movie because we feel for her. She doesn't really know what's going on, and she has that traumatic experience at the beginning, but she's there and she trusts all those people. Meanwhile, her friends are getting killed, her husband's off making out with the weirdo vampire werewolf woman, and you hated her. I mean, you love to hate her, right? You know, and in the end she says, make mine rare. I also want to talk about another movie that nobody ever seems to talk about, and that's Joyride. I love the movie Joyride. I just thought it was so original. These two, you know, this goofy guy, Steve Zahn, is with his friend in the car, and they've got a long trip, and he starts fooling around on the CB and just pretending he's a girl, and he hooks a psycho. And he doesn't know he's hooking a psycho. These are the great things about horror, when these people do these things and they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. That's a great movie, and it has a bang-up ending. Oh my God, I love Joyride. That and Hereditary is another one with a really good story that you don't really fully get, I don't think, until you watch it a second time. And really, I mean, come on, is there anything more horrifying than that girl having the allergic reaction in the back of the car, and he's not paying attention to where he's going, and she sticks her head out the window? Is there anything more terrifying than that? And then he gets home and he just leaves it there, just leaves her there in the car and goes in the house. And you hear the mother scream, and Toni Collette, please, she's so great. I mean, that movie, wow. I saw one of those evil Santa movies at the drive-in in 1985. And I don't know which one it was, but I know there was a big firestorm about Santa being evil. And now there are so many, I've found so many evil Santa movies that I don't know which one it was. And I couldn't tell you because my boyfriend and I made out the entire time. We didn't even watch it. So I'd be dying to know which of those Santa horror movies came out in the summer of '85. People who love horror feel things deeply. We probably also have had some sort of trauma in our youth. I did. I grew up with, I love my parents, but they were both alcoholics. We feel things deeply, and we love Christmas because we always want Christmas to be like it's supposed to be. My parents didn't start drinking until I was 8. So I had great Christmases up until that time. And then after that, from like 8 to the time I left home, Christmases were crap. You forever want to have that home alone Christmas. I mean, you don't want your parents to leave you behind, but you know what I mean? That might be why people who love horror also love Christmas movies. When I got Shudder, I had no idea who Joe Bob Briggs was. I hadn't seen him ever. I never had those channels that he was on. And I think I was in college for some of the 80s, and then I was married to my first husband, and that was horror enough. But then one day I was, flipping around the channels, and I saw the thing about the marathon. And it had already run, but it was on there. You could watch it. So I said, I'm gonna watch this and see what it's like. And I was immediately captivated because Joe Bob Briggs was not at all what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting a really brilliant man who knew so much about the movies that I love. In the summer, we always went to the drive-in, like Mother's Day, which I began to think I hallucinated. But then Joe Bob showed it, and I was like, oh my God, this is a real movie. I can't believe it. I love those. I have a soft spot in my heart for those really, really horrible drive-in movies. He cared about these movies, and he knew about how they were made. He knew Herschel Gordon Lewis, I saw all those movies in the drive-in, and they were so gross and disgusting. And I never realized how bad they were until I watched them as an adult, how poorly they were made, but who cared about that? But then I began looking on Twitter for things about the last drive-in and Joe Bob, and that's what led me to the Mutant Family. And I said, well, do I really belong there? I don't know if I belong there. But the more that I read the tweets from people, and then I watched some Joe Bob live and saw the tweets with the hashtag Mutant Fam, and I just jumped in. And I thought, I don't really know if I belong here because I don't know. I just didn't know. I didn't know if there were people out there like me who pretend to lead a normal life. I mean, I'm a children's musician, for God's sake, but yet I have this dark side in my real life. When I tell them I love horror, they're like, you like horror? I'm like, I would rather watch horror more than anything in the world. I would rather watch horror. So I wasn't sure how I would fit in with this group, but then I began finding that there were a lot of people like me and a lot of people not like me, but it didn't matter because what we had in common was a love of these movies and a love of Joe Bob and a love of Darcy. And it just became a thing. I said, we're going. And I bought the tickets, and then my husband broke his foot and he couldn't go with me. So I ended up going alone. I was kind of scared, but I knew enough people in the community by now that there were people like I do the spinoff, the X-Files Live on Monday nights with a group of people that we watch who are mutants. And then Jeff Whitmire, I've become friends with and he did my video for the Jaws song. So there are a lot of people that I was really looking forward to meeting. And then I decided to volunteer. So I got to hang out with Felissa Rose and talk to Joe Bob and Darcy. And it was just really a blast. It was just so much fun. I really felt like I belonged there. When you can talk about horror with people who get it, there's nothing better than that. The community itself is very loving and accepting and giving. And it doesn't matter that I'm not like you or you're not like me. It doesn't matter. They rally around for people they don't even know. It's just such a supportive community. I consider everybody my friends, my in real life friends, because it branches off to these other things that are so human and kind, and I love it. Mutant Fam, I love them. I love each and every one of them. My personal hope for me is that I never lose my voice and that I'm singing until the day I die and making music until the day I die. I have a goal. My personal goal is I have to live to be 91 years old. And I'll tell you why. I was born in 1959. In 2050, I'll be 91, and I will have been born in the 50s and I'll go out in the 50s. And I can't think of anything cooler than that. as a robot.